Namaskar and thank you for joining us here on our weekly program on geoeconomics. We'll be discussing the vision of India as a $30 trillion economy by the year 2047. It would be 100 years of India's independence, and currently India has reached what could be considered as the golden age of economic progress in a sense, since the country is well poised for rapid growth with a youthful population, adequate resources, adequate momentum as well, and a vision. Now, the Niti Aayog has been working on a vision document. It has 10 themes: rural and agriculture, infrastructure, resources, social vision, welfare, finance and economy, commerce and industry, technology, governance. And to deconstruct this vision, we have with us two guests. Let me introduce you to them. Professor N.R. Bhanumurthy is a senior economist and Vice Chancellor of the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar School of Economics, University, Bengaluru, and SRIRAM is an economist and expert on the Indian economy. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us. I think, this vision document, when it comes out, will act as a blueprint where institutions of government, would need to work to implement it, or will it just be, guiding principles in a sense?
See, earlier also when you had the planning commission and the 5-year planning process, you used to have a perspective plan running for 15 years. That got broken into 5-year plans, and which further got broken into annual plans. So it's another 15-year type of a perspective plan, with the difference that it stretches for another, say this is 23 till 47, 25 years. And we require it at this point because everything is coming our way. Internally and externally, there could be a bit of a challenge, but internally, policy-wise, resource-wise, India is in a takeoff stage on a secular basis, on a long-term basis. And therefore, yes, it is a vision, it's a perspective, and you need to have policies coming together, and you need to have...
But Mr. Srirangam, the pace of change and redundancy seems to be very fast. We're in the digital age. People are changing their technology, their gadgets really fast, so that's probably a sign also. Does this put pressure on India's skill sets, resources, innovation? Do you see Make in India digital products and, and services actually leading growth?
See, that's our advantage, actually. If you look into our the advantages, we have this, we've been the leader in the software. It's not the products that we have created, but we were on the verge of creating products as well. Our exports and also domestic consumption for software. So the technical education and human capital has been our advantage. It's just that we need to put a little more energy into the emerging technologies like generative AI and the associated, 4.0, industrial revolution, nano, etc. If we can get our story right on research and development and human capital, I don't think it'll be tough for us to get to the $30 trillion, 100 years of our independence. That's where the entire challenge lies. Putting our energies into the cutting edge technologies, the nanos and the generative AIs and so on and so forth, linking it with our academia, the higher education. That is a real challenge. Hopefully, the new bill passed about research foundation and also the new education policy, they'll take care of it. And also in the union budget of the current fiscal, there is this Pradhan Mantri Vikas Kaushal Yojana 4.0. That is specifically to skill people in the Industrial Revolution 4.0. And that gives a lot of hope that we are on the right track.
This vision is more than just talking about massive growth in GDP. It's also a process of nation building. To what extent does it require social change to be driving this economic change?
Linking directly to economic growth, women should participate in the labor process. The labor force participation rate of women is very low, and it could be falling also. And for structural reasons, historic reasons, social reasons, we need to remove that, alleviate that. Secondly, on the social front, we need to get our act together on the education, on the health. We are still not spending 6% of GDP on public education. We are still not spending 3% of GDP on health. And that's very critical for the foundation of the growth process. And further up, if you scale, you have to take care of the malnutrition problem of the children. You need to ensure that the quality of jobs is decent. It's good, the headline number that the unemployment rate is falling is heartening. But what's the quality of the jobs? And that has huge impact on the social fabric. So these are the areas on the social front we need to take care of. They're intimately connected to governance reforms as well. I'm sure we'll get into that a little later.
Okay. Mr. Srirangam, government think tanks working along with the private sector ones. In fact, Boston Consulting Group is going to be assisting in drafting this document. But how seriously do government institutions take private sector advice? We know that many, reports are presented and they just put on the shelves, gather dust.
But remember, since the launch of these reforms in 91, we had this term called indicative planning, where the government looking to the private sector to put in more money than the government itself. That necessitates that they sit together and plan it out. So consultative indicative planning requires that the private sector and the public sector work together. After all, aren't we depending upon the PPPs, public-private partnerships in every sector? Social sector, physical sector, technological sector, educational sector, etc. So why won't we take seriously the reports of BCG, Pricewaterhouse, all these people, McKinsey? We have to take them very seriously. After all, they have some value to add to the governance. State capacity can be improved only when we consult the private sector and how to go about it. After all, as Bhanumurthy was saying, it's not how much you spend, it is how you spend, the quality of expenditure. That depends upon governance reforms and state capacity, to which these globally renowned groups like BCG have something to contribute, and we have to take them as seriously as the government itself. After all, they're involved. We depend on them for the success of the $13 trillion project.
Okay. Also, what's important is trying to align that vision with the Sustainable Development Goals, as Dr. Bhanumurthy was saying, and whatever goals are made after 2030. So,
do we have to imitate somebody? We should not.
Okay.
See, we are a unique country. Our demography is unique. History is unique. Civilization is unique. Our economic model has been unique. Jawaharlal Nehru and others, the Mahalanobis model, enormous success of it. Our reforms, since 91, and the current model that we are following, welfareism, new welfareism, and our emphasis on sanitation, inclusion, and digital public infrastructure. This is adding up to be a new model that others should follow if it suits them. We should not follow anyone. For that matter, historically, from agriculture to manufacturing to services. What is Ijaz Ghani saying? What is Raghuram Rajan saying? They are saying that services should be the basis for our future economic growth. So if you follow historically any other country, you will strive to make manufacturing the center of your economy, for which we are not suited. We don't have the land. We don't have the land for manufacturing. The population is 17% and the land is 2.5% of the world. So we need to carve out our own models. For example, we need to have the services-led growth model. And we have this opportunity again knocking on our door. Generative AI, the cutting-edge technology, that is where our talent should take us, and we should regain our status as a world leaders that we once had historically. So we should develop our own model. We've been developing our own model. We should sustain that, and we should fine-tune that. That is where our future lies. You start imitating, then future looks a bit shaky.
Sure. Mr. Srirangam, it is the global south, the middle income countries that make the difference. They are the ones who are growing up, and hence they are engines. To what extent, as South-South cooperation, India becoming the voice of the global south, all this helping us to develop new markets probably unique products as well, based like UPI, for instance. I mean, these things that can all start, a new revolution in a sense.
For the last about 2, 3 decades, South-South cooperation has been registering spectacular progress. India is a leading country in that. China also calls itself South. That's another debate altogether. But Africa is the youngest continent, and they have tremendous future. And India, a leader in education, health, and telecommunications, so on, we could link up with them for mutual symbiotic growth. And in the G20, we have seen that India has displayed its leadership of Global South. We have inducted the African Union into the G20, and that is going to be a stimulus for South-South cooperation, be it in technology and health, education, sustainable agricultural development. In all these areas, South-South is where the future is going to be, because the West is declining. Germany is in recession.
Yes.
And you know about Japan. And so it is South where you have the markets, you have the consumption, you have the innovation, and that's where the leadership should also come. That's what the reforms in the UN are about, IMF reforms are about, World Bank reforms. The Larry Summers and Kissing task force about multilateral development banks and the reforms.
Sure.
Why the reforms? Because you need to situate the Global South in its rightful place.
Fair enough.
And of course, India is a rightful leader.
In conclusion, let's say this, by 2047, India's literacy levels also are going to be very much higher, close to 90%. Also, India's life expectancy is expected to rise due to better healthcare. But India is one of the growth engines of the world currently. And South-South cooperation, as we've been talking, is increasing the number of developing countries moving up from LDCs. Middle-income countries are the home to 75% of the world's population, also about 62% of the world's poor. And these are the markets and economies that need to be developed with the India effect. Thanks very much for watching. Namaskar.